are the queen, and I am the rook. You are the fire, and I burn like a book. Don't know how this one ends till I die. And the honest part of reliable is the lie. The greater the power, the more the abuse. You are the hand, I worship the bruise. If romance is dead, I guess I'm a necrophiliac. But every god needs a sacrifice. I am the cross and you are the Christ. So I drink.
Damn it.
Anyway.
So here's the thing. The funny thing is Clark was sitting here earlier and he was like, who are you waiting for? And I was like, I'm waiting for Dustin. And he was like, Dustin. And then my husband came up to get dressed because he had to go do something. And he was like, are you doing a podcast this afternoon? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, when? And I was like, as soon as Dustin gets on. And he goes, Dustin. Beep, 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 kids. This is Mothers of Mayhem, an extreme horror podcast. I understand if you might be slightly confused right now because this sweet gentleman right here is obviously not our Christina. This is Dusty Buns, also known in my house as Dustin.
That'd be me.
Welcome to Dustin Whalen, my co-host for today. You can probably hear in my voice how hype I am about this.
Wow. I am Mr. Swan Dong. If she didn't mention, did you mention? I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll never live that down. Everybody at work calls me that now, by the way.
Oh my God, that's fantastic. That is
I'm
secondary gain that I could have never possibly even dreamed of.
Right, just because I have big fat thumbs.
I am so glad you do. So Dustin and I became friends because Dustin is a fellow book reviewer on TikTok known as @Captain Crippy. You need to go follow him. He is, of course, one of my personal favorites. More importantly, Dustin is the father of swan dongs.
Oh, you were going to say that. See, I jumped ahead of you on that.
No, that's okay. It's important that because if it hadn't been for you and your dumb brain, that never would have happened.
They always say how dumb I am, and she's like, no, this face.
If your dumb brain hadn't done that thing, then my dumb brain wouldn't have been like, we should make people write about that. What a great writing.
I'm so glad you came along.
Swan
I get to
penises.
do this all because I have fat things. It's fantastic.
See, you never know. You never know what mistakes will get you. Crisis sometimes equals opportunity, Dustin.
I just go with stupidity. Gives me chances.
Yeah, it's great. Magical Mick Collins referred to them today on the Facebook group as magical fuck-ups.
Magical fuck-ups.
I'm like, oh my God, we are so good at those.
40 years of those. That's what I've been doing.
Woo, woo, woo. Me too. 42 years. Magical fuck-ups.
Yep, 42.
So, my precious Dusty Buns.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I don't know how this happened, but I mean, I kind of do. It started when I gave him a business card at AuthorCon in Virginia back in April for our podcast. But then somehow Brian Keene decided that he would actually agree to be on this dumb show. And so now he's going to do that today. And
oh yeah, I'll never forget that text message.
Oh yeah, because when I knew Christina was going to be unable to make it, you were the first person who popped into my brain when I was thinking of who else I could burden with this responsibility. Congratulations. Aren't you happy? I know
Yeah.
you are. You're pretty
I've
stoked,
never done
aren't
this
you?
before. And she's like, you want to get your cherry popped by some guy named Brian? It's like, sure, Brian Keene. That's no pressure at all.
No, none whatsoever. He is most definitely not a masthead figure for modern
Right?
independent horror. When we talk about the godfathers of our genre as it is now, we definitely don't hear names like Ed Lee, Rath James White, Carlton Mellick, Richard Lehman, Brian Keene. What are we doing? This man has legit won 2 Bram Stoker Awards, a Shocker Award, the World Horror Grandmaster Award. He got Best Screenplay and Best Short Film at Imaginarium in 2015. He got an Imagine Award for Best Fantasy Novel. And he got a This Is Horror Award for the Best Nonfiction Podcast of the Year in 2017. And now he's on our podcast.
And I'm just some idiot sitting on a couch right now. That's
Look,
what I am.
I'm sitting on my bed in a mountain of squishmallows. This is a professional. This is a professional setup, my dude. he's gonna be so just gobsmacked by how
Spare no
amazing
expense.
we are.
Yeah.
This man has so many published works. My brain got confused and lost count around 2/3 of the way down his bibliography. And now he's going to talk to our dumbasses.
Well, I can add to this.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Tell me.
Not just a film writer. He's also created material for popular franchises as Doctor Who. We both love Doctor Who. Holy shit. Thor, Aliens, Harley Quinn, The X-Files, Doom Patrol, Justice League, Hellboy, Superman, Masters of the Universe, which I grew up on. Oh my god.
You and I are both Skeletor fanatics.
Yes. Massive Skeletor fanatics. Great. That is fantastic.
Don't you sass me.
No,
Dustin Whalen. I swear to God, I'll kick your ass. Dustin, do you know how viral we could go with a video of a hugely pregnant woman chasing a man in a wheelchair down the middle of the street while she's screaming death threats?
That's 2 million. That's 2 million right there.
We'd be stars. Why you gotta live so far away? This is our big chance.
If I start now, couple days. I'll get random strangers to push me when I'm too tired. You know?
By the time you get here, you'll be too tired to try and get down the street. I'll have to give you some rest time.
I'll be a quadriplegic instead of a paraplegic. Yeah.
Worth it.
Worth it. That's the first thing I'll say at your doorstep. Worth it.
Worth it. Well, to distract ourselves from what's about to happen, let's talk about something else.
My heart's beating like 90 miles an hour.
Oh, it's all right. It's okay. It's all right. Do you have any benzos? Take a Xanny. Well, the people already know what I've been reading, what I've been digging, but I think it would be pretty awesome if you share what some of your favorite reads of 2022 have been so far, because I am constantly adding to my stupid, unmanageable TBR because of you. So
sorry about that.
Share that pain with some other
I'll
people.
always share these thoughts, but then after I do it, I'm like, what I just said sounds terrible. No one will ever read the book that you just said to read because you did not sell it. And then everybody's like, oh my God, that sounds fantastic. And I need to read it right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
See? Don't let the imposter syndrome get you down.
Let's see. I feel like I'm on TikTok and I need to do the invert thing, but I can't hear. I just read Winter Set Hollow by Jonathan Edward Durham. This is my signed copy. I'm very excited to have my signed copy.
Oh, that's awesome. What did you really like about Winterset Hollow? I found it to be very understated, but I really appreciated the book for what it was. What was it that you loved about it so much?
It takes a long time to get started. I mean, I actually listened to it.
Does.
It takes like 3 hours of them just visiting and all this. It takes a while to get started. But once they start getting hunted down, spoiler, bad things happen in this book to people. I've never read anything like that in my life.
Yeah.
To go from a complete fantasy to this horror novel where they're basically hunting people down for sport. I just like that in a fantasy setting. I never read that before.
It was almost like a terrifying version of The Wind in the Willows. It was like
Yes.
a nightmare version of Wind
That's
in the
absolutely what it
Willows.
was.
It really is a remarkable book. I loved it. He set the bar high for himself, didn't he?
Yeah, that would be like the one terrifying thing. That's me. I would be too good at writing. So when I write my first book, there's no way I could do it again.
You're afraid
That's the way I look at it.
you'd be a one-hit wonder,
Yeah,
Dustin.
I'll be too good at it. That's my problem.
You could possibly be. You could possibly be just too good at it.
Yeah, that's what I tell myself.
What else you got?
I just finished Old Country by Matt Clury and Harrison Clury. I didn't ever even hear of this book. I just saw it at the bookstore. I said,
No.
well, I want to read that. And it's about a seasonal haunting, and it's weird to say that, something that's a haunted house story didn't really scare me that much, but I liked it. It's weird to say that. But they get told by their neighbors that there's a seasonal haunting and you have to do all these rituals because it happens all the time. In the summertime, this different thing will happen. In the wintertime, this thing will happen. Fall, this thing will happen. It's just really, really cool. I just like it. The couple, it doesn't have that idiotic thing where just one person knows what's going on. Everybody else thinks they're crazy. You got this relationship with these two people, and they're not crazy, and they both know what's happening, and it's cool to have their back and forth because it makes it funny too. And I'm just jabbering on and on and on.
No, this is interesting, sweet.
So came out of nowhere.
You said seasonal haunting, and my brain was like, what?
Yeah.
And how you said, it's funny to say that a book about a haunted house didn't really scare you.
Yeah.
But you still thought it was amazing. That's kind of how I felt about Kill Creek.
Yes. I love Kill Creek. That's one of my favorite
loved Kill Creek. What a great book that was.
Yeah.
So now I'm adding this one to my TBR. Continue. Damn it.
Well, I just finished the book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James.
I already have this on my list.
It's pretty. I love Simone because the supernatural stuff is in the book. It's definitely part of the book. It's a main part of the book, but it's not, how do I put this? It's not in the forefront. Like, it's part of the story. It's not the story. It's just added in there to make a thriller a little bit something more than it is. And I just love that about Simone St. James. I mean, I read Sundown Motel and I loved it. I read Broken Girls, which is actually my favorite of hers. But the book of Cold Cases is right up there too. I can't really pick out of those three. I love all three of them.
I have not read any Simone St. James yet, but this one, you talked about this one on TikTok, and the title alone, it was one of those books where just the title alone, my brain was like, oh my God.
Is in the title of a book. I don't know why, but I just love that. Or
you like Chuck Wendig's The Book of Accidents?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Which was another amazing book. Another Pennsylvanian who only lives like an hour from me. What a great book that was.
Is everybody from where you're from? Nobody.
I don't know. I'm starting to feel that way. I'm like, is Pennsylvania truly the hub of horror? Because I'm feeling really good about this right now.
Simone St. James does this little dual timeline thing, which could be really done really terribly, but she does it really well.
Where she like jumps back and forth across the
like
timeline.
There's a person, like in the 1950s, that's the main storyline, and then 30 years later, and it just jumps. But she does it fantastically.
Oh.
I keep waiting on one of them to be terrible, and they're not.
Oh, now I'm really interested.
This one is. I've got another one. This is kind of cheating because I'm not done, but I'm reading. I'm actually in the middle of Clown in the Cornfield too. I love these books. Clown in the Cornfield is so fun.
I
It's
feel
just-
like such a putz for not having read them yet. And do you want to know something else about Adam Cesare?
Cesare.
I believe that's how you say it. Guess where he's from?
Are you gonna fucking say Pennsylvania?
I am.
God damn it.
Wild. See, you love us Pennsylvanians.
Wow, that's
It really
is
is.
actually in Pennsylvania next year.
It's in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
You have two
So
conventions.
I guess
you
everybody
need to
doesn't
come
have to drive that far next year.
You'd be surprised how big Pennsylvania is.
Yeah, it's pretty huge. Yeah, it is pretty huge. When you told me how far you were from Pittsburgh, I'm like, damn.
Yeah, 4.5 hours.
Yeah, shit. That's a
I
long
know.
way.
Yeah, but I'm
I
only
could-
an hour and a half from Philly, so
That's all that matters.
that gives you kind of like an idea of where I am, because the one's on one side and one's on the other. So really, it's only like a 6-hour drive to get across from one side to the other.
Yeah.
But that's
like
about as
people who
long
are
as
from
it
there,
takes
they
me to
always-
get to Williamsburg, Virginia, which is another place you need to get your butt to this spring.
Mhm.
So you can meet Mr. Brian Keene in real life.
I'll go full circle. Full circle.
Him and me at the same time.
I might have a heart attack. Be
Holy
glad I'm sitting down for that for sure. For sure.
Goober. I love you so much.
Well, I mean, when all else fails, just crack a handicap joke. That's usually how I handle things. I don't really know.
It was funny.
See,
Oh,
the
what a
Zanny is
fart.
already taking effect. It's good.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. Chase it with a couple of white claws. You'll be fine. My
I've got a lot of.
apologies.
There's.
My apologies to any listeners who are in recovery. I'm sorry.
Yeah, don't do drugs ever. That was a joke. I'm not on anything.
I never do
that
drugs.
Was a joke.
I
That
don't
was a
drink the
joke.
alcohol.
Yeah, that was a joke.
Do you have
I
any
read a lot of
others?
stuff, but unfortunately, I read all kinds. But unfortunately, I'm the guy who gets rid of books. Like if I love them, I don't get rid of them. If I love them, I let my friends borrow them and say, "Here, you have to read this. You have no say so in this matter." So they have a lot of my books. If books aren't fantastic or like worth staying on the shelf forever, I do take them to McKay's, which is our big, huge warehouse of books. Which is, I love that place. And let's get trade credit and do other things. But so I don't have a lot of book covers. Is my long explanation means I don't have a lot of book covers. But I just read Near the Bone by Christina Henry.
Oh, I've heard about this one.
The main guy there's a human bad guy in this one too, and he is so horrible and so evil and so terrible. I've never had to take a break from a book because somebody was so despicable, and I had to with this guy.
Because
like,
you
am I gonna
hated
finish this
him
book?
so much.
I hated him. He's so abusive and so terrible. I put the book down, but I'm glad I picked it back up because it ended up being amazing. I need to
I
read
heard
more
it's
of her.
good.
Everybody
That's how
loves her,
I
and
felt with the main character, Adam, I believe his name was, in C.V. Hunt's Ritual Human Sacrifice. Have you read that one?
No, I have it on the Kindle, but I haven't read it.
Oh my God, prepare yourself. Because this is another one where, like, the main dude in the book, you hate him so much. You just want every bad thing possible to happen to him because he is just disgusting in every way.
Yeah.
So abusive. So abusive. That's what makes it horror, right?
The whole world went on about Verity, and so I finally listened to that.
Oh my God, you have to tell your nurse's station story because it's too good.
The nurses, oh my God. Yeah, I'm in the nurse's station, and my phone disconnects from my little headphones I've got here. And I just the volume, so I go to turn it on, and she goes, "You know, it's the guy she fucks behind your husband's back," as loud as it can throughout the nurse's station. So it was these little guys that disconnected. So it was just coming straight from my phone. And I think they made it worse by not saying anything about it because I know they all heard it.
You just got caught out by your technology. It was like, just so you
all
all
the things I
know,
listen to.
Dustin listens to smut
Yeah.
while
yeah.
reviewing
All the
doctor's
things
orders.
I'm sitting there listening to. They're like, oh, okay. So he's listening to smut while I'm sticking my fingers in places in these patients that I would rather not mention. Yeah.
So you weren't like totally into Verity? I thought Verity was great.
No, I loved it.
It was almost a little too spicy for me. I could have done
like,
without all the spice.
Yeah, I could have done without all the spice. Like, I don't hate that. So I don't go out looking for that. I have no
Same.
when you read that. But yeah, I was real shocked. I'm sitting in a nurse's station sometimes looking around going, oh God, can I hear this? Can I hear this right now? This is spicy. But I did really like the story. That's a good, real creepy, real twisty. Like that rock, paper, scissors. I don't know if you ever read that. Alex Feeney, I think is her name. Extremely twisty.
It's
I think
on
that's
my
another
list.
one horror fans. I love thrillers that I know horror fans will get into because like they're not supernatural. Of course, they can happen in real life, but they fit that Silence of the Lambs kind of thing.
Yeah. Did you read Hidden Pictures yet?
No, but I have it, and I've. I don't normally cheat, but I went through and I looked at the pictures because I couldn't help it. Couldn't help it. Maybe I didn't see them all.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
It just the atmosphere. Like I'm the guy. I will put these headphones on and listen to like thunder and stuff. If I'm reading, I do that a lot. I'm not going to need to with Hidden Pictures because the atmosphere is right. It's like right there on the page. I love when a lot of people don't illustrate things, which I understand that, but I love when they do.
Oh, me too. That's what I'm really loving about the revival of chat books. Like, were you able to get, I know that it came and went so fast because it sold out really, really quick, but I don't know if you were able to get a copy of the obituaries?
No, I have not. But have you read the whole thing?
Chat books are great because they come with illustrations. Oh, this is not suitable for work, but they come they come with illustrations in them. That one's a little bit better. But I enjoy that Beauregard and Volpe have been putting illustrations in their stuff for a while.
There's a guy named Jeremy Robinson who's got some kaiju books. They're like giant monsters.
Oh yeah.
The first one. He draws his kaiju, so you can see exactly what he's seeing. Well, somebody draws them. I'm not saying I don't know who, but it's nice to see exactly what the author's trying to tell you. Like you can picture these giant monsters completely in your head. I love that.
That's
use your imagination. Yeah, I love to do that. But when you give me a picture, I love to look up like fan art and stuff of books to see what other people have come up with. It's fun.
We have a special guest.
What?
What? Oh my God! Hi, Brian Keene.
Hi, I was going to
God.
I got in a couple minutes earlier.
Yeah, that's fine. We were just chattering. We were just chatting away. We're already recording and everything.
If people could see your
Oh, I am so sorry. My internet, it couldn't handle the excitement.
Yeah,
it felt the vibe, the energy that just like shot out of us, and my internet was like, no, I can't. Complete disruption. Well, welcome, Mr. Brian Keene.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So we're gonna be honest. Dustin and I are just a tad bit starstruck right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are considered one of the OGs of modern horror fiction.
I mean, that's what they say, but you know.
Yeah, I've heard rumors, those rumblings, and you may or may not have been hugely influential as far as your impact on the
I mean,
evolution of indie horror as it is
yeah,
now.
I mean, look, logically and factually was I sure, but I don't go around, you know, carrying that like, can I curse on your show?
Fuck yes.
Okay. I don't go around carrying that like a fucking billboard behind me because, you know, the moment you do that, you're a douchebag. So, you know, I always say it like this. I have been a fan of horror since I was about 8 years old. And now I'm lucky enough to give back to a genre that has given me a lot of enjoyment over the years. And if tomorrow they come to me and they say, you know, you're canceled and we're taking back all your awards and taking your stuff out of print, that's okay. I'll still be a fan of the genre. So I'm just happy to have contributed something that so many people I look up to have contributed to, you know?
Well, we would like to say congratulations on the amazing career and our deepest sympathies for making the poor decision to come on this show today. I don't know if you've had a chance to to listen to Mom, but we like to keep it light and lively, and we like to be funny as hell. But
I do. That's the great thing about not doing any podcasts anymore. Now I have time to listen to other people's podcasts. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So if you've listened to us, you know our vibe.
Yeah, there's a bunch that I listen to, and yeah, if you remember, I said, hey, if you ever want me on, let me know, and that's because I dig what you're doing. I dig the vibe, you know. I dig the humor. It's just very laid back, and
but I do have some heavy
She's gonna
questions.
die of a heart attack.
I might die of a
Do
heart
what?
attack.
All right, well, let's not do that.
I am 42 and pregnant. I can only handle so much right now. I'm pushing my limits here. Well, I'm gonna go. What we're gonna do is Dustin and I are gonna go back and forth, and hit you with some questions. Then we'll take a brief little break, and then we're gonna hit you with the rapid fire 4, which is basically 4 questions of absolute ridiculosity.
All right.
And one of my favorite parts. But first, put your rain slicker on, because I'm about to vomit a whole lot of words on you as far as the setup for this part of the discussion goes. Okay. So, so you set almost all of your stories within the same literary universe. Dustin and I, we refer to it as the Keeneverse. Yeah. And I know that both you and myself are Pennsylvania natives. Yep. Just realizing like 2 days ago that we actually are only like less than 40 minutes apart. I'm going to leave you like muffin boxes and just drop off as gifts like on the other side of the Wrightsville Bridge. They'll just say like 4 kittens. Yeah, all of the kittens.
I told her where you were from. I was looking online and she said, wait, what did you say?
Yeah, I was born in North Carolina, and I spent my first 5 years in West Virginia, and then we moved up here to Pennsylvania. I split my time now between Pennsylvania and West Virginia. So
I think that is so cool. So I grew up, I don't know if you know about Shamokin, Pennsylvania is where I was born. It's basically like the coal capital of Pennsylvania. Oh. And then my parents moved to Franklin County. So we were in Chambersburg, Gettysburg, from 87 forward. And I know you, having lived in West Virginia, as well as all of the time you've spent here in South Central Pennsylvania, Dustin's a Tennessee boy. So a common thread that all 3 of us have here is the Appalachians.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And like when I was growing up down on my side of the zone you and I live in, we had like stories about like the White Lady of Palm Bank, the haunted CCC camp in Caledonia where all the kids died, a haunted witch grave out by Letterkenny. You guys up in your area, you guys had the whole freaking 7 gates of hell, which people still talk about. And you had the very real Hex House murder of Nelson Raymeyer in 1928 that fueled all of that legend. So I can't help but kind of want to lean into, you know, a little bit of a discussion about picking your brain about how the oral storytelling traditions of the Appalachians, like particularly Pennsylvania legend and lore, might have impacted your use of this state as a primary setting for your books.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you know, you mentioned the Nelson Raymeyer murder, Hex Hollow. That, I mean, it's a very loose adaptation, but my novel Dark Hollow is basically a modern day version of that. You know, I was a teenager in the early 80s, and you know, it was the era of Quiet Riot and Motley Crue and Prince, and you know, on a Friday or a Saturday night, you took your date to Raymeyer's Hollow. You know, that was where you went to go parking.
Yeah.
So you know, I grew up steeped in those legends. I know those woods very well. I have seen weird shit in those woods. But you know, the tradition goes way further back than that. You know, my great grandmother, I always compare her to Mother Abigail from Stephen King's The Stand. She was a Christian woman, but she was the type of Christian that you don't encounter much these days. She was non-judgmental. She loved everybody regardless of what they believed, who they loved, you know. And I adored her. And she lived in this little 3-room house in Hollow in West Virginia, you know, and she was old enough to remember the old West, you know, but her best stories were, you know, the ghosts and monster stories that she would tell. And she was always good enough to let me know when it was just a legend, when it was just a myth, and when it was something that she'd actually seen or experienced. So, you know, I was steeped in this stuff at an early age. And yeah, like Dark Hollow, my novella Scratch, it's kind of based on the cryptid Raystown Ray, the giant snake, which supposedly lives in Lake Raystown,
Raystown Lake.
Pennsylvania. Yep. You know, so yeah, I borrow, you know, I always, obviously, like everybody in our generation, you didn't become a horror writer without in some way being influenced by Stephen King. I was influenced by a lot of people, but obviously Steve was one. He's been very gracious to me over the years. But you know, one thing I always noticed as a teenager reading his books, not only were you invested in the characters, but you were invested in the location. You know, Castle Rock itself became a character with as much agency as any other character. So, you know, I wanted to do that, and I wanted a good geographic sense of where I was writing about. And I looked out the window and said, well, why not write about Central PA and the Appalachians, you know?
There's such one of the things I love about the Appalachian storytelling tradition is there's such a darkness to it. At its core, there is darkness, there is horror. And Dustin and I were talking earlier, and I was kind of blowing his mind because he kept pulling books out. And I was like, that person's from Pennsylvania. That person's from Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Brian Keene's from Pennsylvania. Wes Southard is from Pennsylvania. Adam Cesare is from Pennsylvania. Chuck Wendig's from Pennsylvania. Candace Nola, she's from Pennsylvania. Lucy Leitner, Pennsylvania. Like,
and it goes back even beyond that. It goes back generations, back to Weird Tales. There were like 6 or 7 Weird Tales writers that were in almost every other issue, all not only from Pennsylvania, but from central Pennsylvania. You know, Skip and Spectre, when they were doing their Splatterpunk novels back in the late 80s, early 90s, they were doing it in York, PA. I remember my senior year in high school, I had this really terrible novel. It was a complete ripoff of King's the Mist. But I thought, if I can get it into the hands of Skip and Spectre, they'll help me get it published and I'll be a millionaire. So they used to play this club in downtown York. And I wasn't old enough to get in. You got to be 21 in Pennsylvania. I would stand outside with the manuscript, hoping to meet Skip and Spectre. And years later, I'm telling Skip about this, and he snaps his fingers. He says, "You are the little kid with the mullet." And I said, "Yes."
I was the mullet child.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Can't picture you with a mullet.
Chet Williamson, one of my favorite writers of that era. He lives in Lancaster County. There's so many of us around here.
Does he live in Lancaster County?
Mm-hmm.
Lord Almighty.
Tim Truman, of course.
He's
in Lancaster.
Dustin's down in Tennessee. He's missing all the fun.
Yeah,
Steven Kozeniewski's up here too, right?
Well, we don't claim Kozeniewski, but yeah, he lives here.
And RJ Benetti is relocating himself from DC to Pennsylvania.
Well, there you go.
Very soon. So I said to Dustin, I was like, is this the hub of horror? The hub of independent horror? Because I'm starting to think it might be. And I really do wonder if there is an element of just the historical nature of storytelling within this Appalachian region of Pennsylvania. We are just so deeply steeped in that. And even to this day, I have a copy of The Constant Friend on my shelves. Like, powwow magic is still a thing. These stories still continue. I was hearing these stories in the 90s. You're nodding your head because you had heard them too. Like, yep. And my kids are learning them. My kids already have heard, well, if we drive down into York, we might be able to walk through the 7 gates of hell. And they're like 10 and 18. So it just continues and continues and continues. And I think it's amazing. And it's very unique, this ridge.
It is.
This part of the country and the horror that comes out of it. Dustin.
I had a question for you, Brian, if you don't care. I guess that's why we're here. I had a question about the publishing, the cover art, the reprintings and everything. I would see when I read Earthworm Gods, which I love, and The Ghoul, which I love, there are these specific versions that'll say the preferred of the author with the different cover art. I just feel like, do you feel freer now than you did before? I don't want to give you put a bad taste in anybody's mouth, but are you there? I'm losing.
I'm here. He may be frozen. Let's give it a moment. See if we can get him back. I bet if I go to the bathroom, he'll come back.
Yeah, go pee real fast.
I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
Boom. He'll come right back.
As soon as I get up to go to the bathroom, I bet he comes back. And it happened!
Did it?
All right. So where were we?
All
Wait,
right.
well, did you get to go to the bathroom?
You guys talk. You guys go ahead and talk, and I'll do that. Dustin, ask your question.
All right.
You go to the bathroom.
I'm gonna take this kid.
Flat out said, if I go to the bathroom, she'll show back up. She moved, and there you were.
All right.
I had a question for you, sir.
I got an answer for you, sir.
Question about the publishing, the cover art, and things like that. I see where it says the preferred version of the author, or the cover art has changed to a more extreme horror, which I absolutely love. I feel like, do you feel freer as an author to do what you want, or have you always felt that way?
Dustin, I apologize. You're cutting in and out. I think it's the connection on my end.
Okay.
Hang on 1 second here. All right, yeah, I'm boosted as strong as it'll go. I caught the last part of the question. Can you just repeat the whole question for me?
I was just kind of curious. When I was looking up your books, it would say this is the preferred version from the author. You've got this really great kind of extreme horror cover art with a lot of things in the newer. I was just wondering if you feel freer as an author to do things that you want to do, or if you always felt that way.
Oh, no. Yeah, I mean, when I was starting out, let's take The Rising, for example. That was my first published novel, published back in 2003. I had no say over the covers. And I had no say over the novel itself. They cut approximately 30,000 words from the manuscript. And that's a big chunk of story.
That's a chunk.
You know, and it bummed me out that people would never be able to read that. Well, one great thing that comes with success, particularly in my case, because I've always kept one foot in the mainstream and one foot in the indie. Yeah. You reach a point where you are free to do shit like that. So, you know, when we reprinted The Rising, I was like, wait, I want to put those 30,000 words nobody's ever seen back into the book. So boom, author's preferred edition. Same with Terminal, which I just released at the start of this year. That came out in 2005, and Random House, I mean, they had legitimate reasons. They wanted to be able to sell the book in Walmart, and Walmart has certain restrictions. Be you a recording artist and author, you have to play by Walmart's rules. So, you know, they made editorial changes to Terminal that I did not agree with, but I went ahead and made them because, you know, it was that or the book doesn't go on sale. In this case, it was changes that completely alters the ending of the book and the meaning of the book. So, you know, when I got the rights back, I was like, oh, now I can release the version I always wanted people to read. So yeah, it's very freeing at this stage to be able to do stuff like that.
Now, well, I need to go back and get that Terminal because I didn't know that it changed everything.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You read the original novel?
Yes.
Okay, well, spoiler alert. The kid who can heal people, it turns out he's the second coming of Jesus Christ.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, completely changes
everything.
Walmart was like, you can't talk about Jesus like that.
Oh yeah.
That is wild.
I get frozen pictures of Marian, like
she is frozen.
Yeah,
just laughing maniacally.
That's me. That is pretty on brand for me. Do you feel like the larger publishing houses at this point are more flexible when it comes to content, that they're more willing to put certain things out there simply because of the popularity and the evolution that horror has gone through? Or do you feel like we're still dealing with some heavy censorship?
I wouldn't call it censorship. I think bookstores these days, retailers, including Walmart, are a lot more willing to sell things that they might not have sold a decade or 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't call it censorship, but I do think big publishing are a little too beholden to market research and their marketing departments. Hey, this book about killer clowns sold really well, so we need 25 more books about killer clowns.
Yes.
You know, this book that has this bland generic cover, you don't know if it's a coming of age romance or a horror novel, sold really well. So all of our novels, regardless of theme or plot or genre, have to have that cover for the rest of the year. There's a lot of that. And I think they're also, I don't want to say beholden to, but and none of them would ever admit this in an interview, but I know a lot of publishers, a lot of editors, and I'm talking mainstream ones, who will get a novel, get a manuscript in, and they really love it, but then they have to second guess, you know, how will the public receive this? So there's a lot of thinking about that before the book is even accepted, more so than there used to be. Unfortunate. I mean, I get it. That's the time we live in. But it's unfortunate. You know, in other ways, it's a great time to be a horror author. Mainstream horror is very popular again. We're seeing more diversity and inclusiveness than we've ever seen. I mean, anybody that's followed my career, you know, I've been fighting for that for 25 fucking years. And it's nice to kind of be able to sit back and say, wow, shit has legitimately changed. You know, is it perfect yet? No, but it's way better than it was 25 years ago. So,
Yes.
you know, it's a great time to be doing this, but also the competition is stiffer than ever.
Oh,
you know?
yeah. Oh,
Which is why I think the indie market plays a more vital role now than it ever has.
And you know, it's interesting to me because I actually just had to broach this topic with Chandler Morrison, who we talked with last weekend, with his newest book, Thigh Gap, which deals with eating disorders. And when I had spoken to him all the way back in March, he was like, I don't even know if anybody's going to pick this up, if they're going to put it out, or if I'm going to have to self-publish because they just don't want to be responsible for putting that content out there. So while mainstream horror is more popular than ever, especially with the female audience, we are really the drivers of horror here. Cancel culture is at its peak. So you're dealing with a situation where people have a tendency to be very vulnerable to certain things, and yet that desire for things that will horrify them is at like critical mass right now. And it's such a paradox to me. And it really brings home the fact that horror is entirely subjective, and what some people can tolerate, other people are like, I am offended. And how indie horror, you have that freedom to be like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna put it out there, I'm gonna self-publish this, and what happens happens.
Well, and it's so true. You take, you know, we mentioned The Rising earlier. You go back to The Rising. I firmly believe The Rising, published in 2003, since then 500,000 copies in print, counting foreign editions and all the paperback runs. It's 500,000 copies printed. Did I get paid for 500,000 copies? Hell no. But they're out there. But you know, my point is, I say that to say it's a popular book. But if I were Chandler's age, or one of these other young guys like Wes Southard or Carver Pike, you know, if I tried to sell The Rising now, I don't think I could ever sell it mainstream. It would be relegated to the indies. And at the time, I sold it to Leisure Books, who were, you know, the cream of the crop for mainstream horror fiction at the time.
Now that's fascinating.
You know, so yeah, a lot has changed. But you know, you brought up Chandler. What's that?
That's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
It almost turns the whole concept on its head, that, you know, a decade ago, you would have been capable of selling that book to a mainstream publisher who now at this point in time would look at it and be like, we don't want to carry the liability of putting this content out there. And yet the desire for that content among the audience is higher than ever. And now they're starting to back down and be worried about what people will think.
Well, and it's not just that, though. In my case, you know, I'm a veteran author. I've been doing this 25 years. So you're a mainstream publisher, okay? And you have two choices. You can publish, let me think of a friend to use. I'm going to use my friend V. Castro as an example.
Oh, yeah.
If folks haven't read her, they should.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Oh, yeah.
So,
XFINITY.
yeah. So I'm an editor. I've got V's first novel in front of me. V is an unknown quantity at this point. You know, very first novel. We don't know how it will sell. We don't know what her fan base is going to be like. Or we can get Brian Keene, who's got a 25-year track record, but he's going to ask us for a lot of money. If I'm a mainstream publisher and I'm trying to cut costs where I can, I'm gonna sign V. And I know that as an author. So I'm okay with that. I get it. It's business. But where it's unfair is like we said, in this guessing of the content and how the public will receive it. Chandler, he's one of my favorite young authors. I think, and I'm friends with a lot of these young authors, but I legitimately think Chandler's something special. That kid has talent in spades. And if it was 25 years ago, he would have been getting published alongside Bret Easton Ellis and Chuck Palahniuk, you know, and somebody like Carver Pike or Daniel Volpe, if it was 25 years ago, they'd be getting published at Leisure Books alongside myself and Richard Lehman and Jack Ketchum and
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not 25 years ago. And those kind of outlets have dried up in mainstream fiction, you know?
Just boggles my mind. But you know, thank God for the indie horror community, the work that you and Ed Lee and Wrath did to build up this community where people have the freedom and the support to self-publish, to publish on an independent level and still get their names out there. You were the ones who drove this whole movement. So honestly,
if it wasn't for that community, I mean, I wouldn't know any of those authors you guys had just mentioned.
I mean,
I know
like
all of them.
I'd like to sit here and say it was altruistic, but it wasn't entirely.
Well, sure, you had to do for you.
Well, you know, it was the financial recession of you know 2009 through 2012, and
yeah.
You know, Brian Smith, J.F. Gonzalez, Mary San Giovanni, Wrath, Ed Lee, myself, we kicked over basically the entire fucking mainstream House of Cards. We were getting shafted. Leisure Books wasn't paying us. They were gonna try to sell our rights out from under us just to stay afloat. And
oh my.
Fighting. Remember, you know, my days where I was on CNN and MSNBC and Fox, all three. I didn't care about their political slant. I just wanted to get our message out there that, hey, we're getting fucked over. You know, ultimately we won, but we crashed the entire system behind us on the way out.
Good for you.
And it's like, all right, well, while they're rebuilding, what are we going to do? Well, I guess we're going to have to start doing it ourselves. And it was great because it coincided with Amazon launching KDP, and it sort of legitimized self-publishing to where it didn't have the stigma it once had. And it also allowed a lot of indie publishers look at, you know, Clash Books or Deadite Press or Eraserhead. It allowed them to compete on the same level as some of these mainstream mass market houses. So it was a moment in time I don't think could ever be repeated. I always thought it would make a great movie. In fact, I was approached by a film crew about actually turning it into a Hunter S. Thompson Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas TV style series. It never got anywhere. I read a couple scripts, and their versions of me and Jesus Gonzalez and Brian Smith were pretty funny and pretty spot on, actually, but it never went anywhere because the truth is 10 people would have watched that show. but
nowadays
you could totally
thing.
That sounds amazing. As soon as you started talking about that, I was thinking about like it's all those shows about Bill Gates and stuff where they're building shit in the garage, you know.
I mean, I'd rather they do that after I'm dead. I mean, for real, you know. I'll tell you a story about why I feel that way. Have either of you read Ghoul?
Oh yes, I love it.
All right,
that's my favorite.
Confession. I was that main character, Timmy Greco. That was 100% me. And 90% of that fucking novel happened. We didn't have a ghoul living in the cemetery. But so they turn it into a movie, and I'm on the set, and Nolan Gould from Modern Family, he's playing Timmy in the movie, and I spend 2 weeks with him on the set, and you know, he gets into character, and it's like hanging out with a younger version of myself. It was like I went back in time, you know, to the point where they built our old clubhouse on this soundstage, and I had to take pictures and send it to my buddies, and they're like, where the fuck are you? That looks like our old clubhouse. I'm like, it is our old clubhouse reproduced on a soundstage. But sitting down and watching that movie and watching this fictionalized version of myself was the weirdest, most uncomfortable thing I've ever felt in my life. So yeah, if they want to do movies about, the leisure books were just wait till I'm dead at this point.
If anybody ever asks us for our opinion, we'll be like, no, just let the man die first.
Yeah,
Let him have some peace. And then you can do what you so I have some things here.
Okay.
These are a few of my favorites. I actually have a picture I'll have to send you of my 6-year-old son picked this one up and was reading it.
Oh dear.
I know. I'll have to send you the picture because my face is like horrified. But so you have written almost 50 or more books now, right?
Over 50.
Yes.
Yeah.
Blood on the page. Okay, so I'm not a tabber or a note taker, but I have Post-its in this book.
I see that.
And I know that you have already previously identified I Sing a New Psalm as a fan favorite, especially when you do live readings of this. But I was raised by an Episcopal priest and a Catholic school teacher who, very much like your grandmother, were very, and still are, very progressive, non-judgmental, just be a good human, live your best life, be the best person you can be.
Right.
That kind of, so I have never once, even worried about indulging myself in this genre that I love so much, because they're just like, you do you, kid, that's awesome. My dad took us to see The Cell in the theater. But this story, and the fact that it's written in the format of like biblical psalm, as soon as I opened this book and I flipped to this page, like my brain was on fire. And this story is only 6 pages long, but it attacks horror on so many levels. The grief, I think, is one of those emotional experiences we have that is one of the few emotions that actually causes us a visceral physical pain.
Oh yeah.
And when you process grief through horror, I think it's an underestimated element to therapeutic processing, using horror to process grief and loss. And then just the whole idea that within these 6 pages you go through this journey with this person that you can relate to so deeply, searching for joy, finding joy, and then having that joy ripped away from you, that feeling of fruitless searching for something that you can put faith in, feeling like you found the right place to put your faith, and then feeling as if the thing you put your faith in ripped everything that you love away from you, took that joy from you, and then the anger and the resentment and the maladaptive misplaced projection of that anger on others. And I've been a psych nurse for 15 years. So this 6 pages between the theological allegory and just the mental health psychological journey rocked my world. Now, this is not the only story in this collection with religious elements. I really, really love the resurrection and the life where you put Ob inside of Lazarus, because Lazarus was one of the stories my sister and I were most fascinated with growing up. And as soon as I read that one, I was like, I gotta send her this book. She's gonna freaking love it. Can you tell me more about your use of religion and horror, and what inspires you to take horror into that zone? Because really, when I think of like the first horror books that I ever read, I always put the Bible in my list because it truly hurt.
I mean, like I said, my great grandma, she was old school, but she was super progressive. My grandparents were Southern Baptist. My parents were Methodist. At one point, believe it or not, I was the president of the church youth group.
Me too.
My first kiss took place at a church function. I lost my virginity at a church function.
Oh wow!
Ryan Keene.
I did. The best friends I ever had growing up, I all made not through school but through church.
Yes.
So I'd be lying through my teeth if I said that the church wasn't a big part of who I am today. However, as I grew into an adult, particularly around the period those two stories and my novella Take the Long Way Home were written, I had begun to, I was already past the serious doubt stage. I was to the stage where, okay, well, I'm an agnostic. I don't think Christianity's got it right. I don't think Islam's got it right. I don't think Judaism or Buddhism. There's something more to this metaphysical universe, but it's stupid for mankind to say, I know the way. And
Exactly.
and I've actually written a whole book about that now. The Triangle of Belief kind of charts that journey for me.
Dang it, why do I gotta keep adding things to my TBR?
It's a quick one though. You can read it in a day, but it's sort of my philosophy on life, the universe, and everything. But I don't know, like I will never denigrate somebody for their religion. Their religion is their religion. Even
Exactly.
Scientology. Okay. I mean, Scientology is a lot of horseshit and it does some toxic stuff, but so does every other religion. So I'm not going to sit here and make fun of Scientologists over everyone else. But I personally I don't believe any of us know. I do think consciousness exists after death. I've been handed proof of that by not one but two of my best friends who I've lost in the last few years. So I know that consciousness lives on after this, but I don't think it's a dude with a beard sitting on a cloud, and I don't think it's 50 virgins, and I don't think it's you come back as a cow, or I don't think we're meant to know or understand.
Did you get any pushback at all for the representation of Obbs as a almost deific figure that goes into this biblical character of Lazarus? Because from my perspective, the Bible is what we were given, but we know that that's not originally what was put on papyrus. What we got was a version that was specifically designed to spread a certain message.
Right.
And so it very well could have been some kind of zombie deity.
I didn't. I probably should have gotten pushback, but I didn't. I think by that point, I had 6 or 7 novels. I think anybody who would have been offended by that, at that point, they knew well enough to stay away from anything I wrote. So they probably never read it.
I don't read him. I love it.
Thank you.
Love it. And I will sing a new psalm. I think. When did you write that? When did you write that?
It all blurs together. That was probably around 2006, 2007, maybe.
It is even. I feel that it is even more relevant today, now, considering the increase in the certain type of violence that is alluded to in that 6 pages.
Oh yeah.
And I think that is just a brilliant example of how you can put something down on paper and then 15 years later, 16 years later, it has even more meaning. That it's almost prophetic in a way, which really adds to the biblical format of it as well. So Shazam, I freaking love it. Oh, Dustin, go ahead, ask the man a question, because I could just I had to really try.
You can rap poetic about this stuff. I could listen to both y'all talk forever.
I was like, I have so many things I need to talk to Brian Keene about, and we only have so much time. Dustin. Do it, Dustin.
Brian, you've kind of answered this one for me, but a question about where the darker storytelling comes from, because I feel like, and it feels very real, when your good guys, even if your good guys win, they're scarred for life. It's got this, when the good guys win, even then they don't. I didn't realize that Ghoul was like 90% of your life, so that makes a lot of sense. Did you actually have that? You said you actually had that playhouse. Was it in a graveyard?
Oh yeah. I grew up next to a cemetery in Pennsylvania, and we spent a whole summer building that clubhouse, by ourselves, and it's exactly like it was described in the book and how it looks in the movie.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You're with these stories, you're like I said, your darker tone. Where do you think that comes from? I mean, like, does it feel more realistic to you to put people through all that
trauma?
My loving partner, author Mary Sangiovanni, calls me a hopeful nihilist. And
I love it.
yeah, she's right. She's absolutely right. Some of it is personal thoughts and personal feelings and personal experiences. Novels like Dark Hollow and Ghoul, and the writer character and the complex. There's a lot more truth to those than I will ever let the public know. But some of it, like Dead Sea or the ending to City of the Dead, it's just, I'm a people watcher. I love studying people, and it's how would humanity realistically react to what I'm throwing at them here. And that's unfortunately how we would react. I think we saw it during the pandemic. In every zombie movie and every zombie novel, the thing that every one of us got wrong was that 50% of humanity would say, oh, they're not real, I'll prove it to you, I'm going to go get bitten by one.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of my endings are downers. Some of them aren't. I think Castaways has a happy ending.
He's like, I got this one book.
Yeah, but I always look at it this way. Horror, people who read horror are craving the experience of feeling unsettled or uncomfortable or hopefully scared.
Yeah.
Okay. The only way you can make a reader feel that is if they are invested in your character. They don't have to like the character, but they have to be invested in them. So you have to put something in that character that's real, something that everyone, regardless of their background, can identify with. And because it's horror, I think people get attached to my characters because they're identifying with them, and then it's horror, and oh, well, remember now, you're here to be made uncomfortable and scared. Boom, here's the ending. And they're like, ah, no!
How dare you? How dare you not give me a happy ending in a horror?
I think that's why I liked Ghoul so much, is because especially towards the end, everything felt so real. And like Earthworm Gods, I just picked it up and started reading. I had no idea I was going to be like an 80-year-old man. So that was such a wonderful and cool aspect to get, because you don't really get that when you read a book very much. It's just elderly person telling what they would really go through during something like this.
Well, and I think that's a generational thing. When I grew up reading horror, it was 9 times out of 10, it was set in a small town, and this white Anglo-Saxon Protestant protagonist, and he's usually a guy, and there's nothing wrong with any of that. But I had read 500 of those novels, and as I said, I was a fan. I knew horror was more than that. So did everybody else that was starting at that time. Brian Smith, Chaf Gonzalez, Raph Jones White, Sephora Giron, Mary, So it was like you really saw generationally, I'm not tooting my horn, but that's when you started to see different kind of characters, as you said, the elderly protagonists of the Conqueror Worms, or the protagonist of Dead Sea. I remember when Dead Sea came out, the press made a big deal out of, I had made the main character a person of color and gay. Like, oh, why would you do that? Well, I don't know, because people from those groups enjoy my books, and I'd like them to have a book with a character they dig.
Yeah.
These days, it'd probably be a very different reaction if I did that, which is, I get it. Society is still growing and changing and going through all these pains, and we're discovering things together. But that's why I like about where horror is right now, is we're getting all these different authentic viewpoints. I really wish Jesus Gonzalez had been alive to see all this. You know, he
Oh yeah.
for years he was the one Hispanic horror writer, you know, and it was such a big fucking deal when him and Rath James White did their first novel together, because it was genuinely the first time two people of color had ever collaborated on novel length fiction in this genre.
So wild.
But I wish what he wanted, he was a pulp writer like me, and he was an extreme horror writer like me, but what he wanted was academia to say, hey, what you did mattered. And you see it now. You see universities teaching and stuff, and you see these young authors like Gabino Iglesias and Cynthia Bernardo and V. Castro, you know, singing his praises. You know, Gabino has a great thing. He's like, when he was a young man, he'd go in the bookstore and yeah, Brian Keene and yeah, Jack Ketchum, but J.F. Gonzalez, that was his guy, you know. It was right there on the cover. And I wish Jesus had been alive to see that, because I think he would have dug it.
Oh God, yeah. It's just I find I'm a Splatterpunk fan. I love Splatterpunk. I love all of the ridiculousness of it that leads to the horrific nature of the storytelling. But at the same time, and I've said this before, there's such a level of surrealism and absurdity to it that your brain immediately clicks in as like, this is not real. This is not real. This would not happen to this extent. It's the books like John Athan's The Groomer, or books like Ghoul, where it feels real. This is real life. These are things that actually happen. Cynthia Palaio's Into the Woods and all the way through her poetry collection just tore me apart. That's probably why I love I Sing a New Psalm so much. Like, that is one man's real experience with the struggle between grief and faith and betrayal. Yeah. That's horror. That is what horror is all about on that deeply emotional level. That's what scares me. You can cut up bodies all day long and I'll be like, ha ha. But you hit me with the real stuff. You hit me in the gut, and I'm like, mush.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's when you make it more applicable to real life, it has a much bigger impact, and that requires, you know, the inclusion of people who are parts of our real lives.
Well, and you know, you brought up an interesting example there. You know, because what we're starting to see, there used to always be a very clear dividing line between splatterpunk and extreme horror. And what we're seeing now with this new generation of writers coming up, the lines are blurred. And a great example is Groomer by John Athan. Now, I like his stuff. I genuinely like his stuff. I like everything of his that I've read. I won't read Groomer for the same reason I've never watched a Serbian film. I know what my triggers are. I know what my triggers are.
Yeah.
And John, if you're listening, that's a compliment to you. But what I love, he's a great example. He's writing extreme horror, but he's writing it with a splatterpunk sensibility. You know, yeah, it's shocking and it's vile, but it's about something more. You know, there's a definite social commentary there. And, you know, what a great time to be a reader of this stuff.
Yes. Oh my
That's
God.
why extreme horror has really introduced to me this whole new thing, because when you put that splatterpunk way into it, when you put that story into it where it's about something else, you can throw anything else at me and I will just eat it up. Love it. Yeah. Because there's something underneath.
100%. So you don't just write books.
No.
Oh, I think both Dustin and I are very, very curious. We're like mega Doctor Who fanatics.
Yeah.
And we know you've contributed to the Who-niverse.
I have.
Can you tell us about that?
I can.
Because we are basically just giant children, and we want to know all about that time you met Doctor Who.
I did one Doctor Who story. It's in this book right here.
Wait, which doctor is that? Which doctor is that?
Destination Prague.
Oh!
And
That's the eighth Doctor.
Well, I chose Doctor number 4, Tom Baker. It's the 8th Doctor on the cover, but they said
oh, you got to choose.
Yeah, and I said I want to use Leela, K9, and the 4th Doctor, and I said it in this version of Prague. It was basically Planet of the Apes, except it was dogs, and the Doctor and Leela spend the entire story in captivity. The story is basically K9 trying to save their ass and lead this revolution. Doctor Who fans dug it. I dug it. BBC. I don't know if they dug it or not. They never asked me to write another one, so they must not have dug it.
What year was that?
That was, like I said, they all blend together after a while. Let me look here. That was 2007.
2007. So was that right before the reboot?
I think it was right around the reboot.
Like the Christopher Eccleston season?
It was either him or the first season with Tennant. I think it was right around there.
Oh my God.
That's when my life changed.
You've written for all kinds of franchises.
Oh yeah, Thor, Doom Patrol. Well, I do a lot of stuff for Marvel and DC. Well, I used to. I don't know that I would ever write for either one of them again, because the entire corporate culture has changed at both since they've been bought out.
Marvel,
I enjoyed writing for Marvel. I do not think I would enjoy writing for Disney. I loved writing for DC Comics. I don't think I would much enjoy writing for Warner Brothers. But yeah, Thor, Doom Patrol, Harley Quinn.
Oh my God, Harley Quinn.
Batman, Superman, Aliens, Phantasm, Evil Dead.
I need your Superman titles. That's why my son is named Clark.
There's a couple of them. If you go to my website and click comics, they're all there. You can get links.
I gotta get them for my husband. Yeah. You haven't done any Godzilla yet?
No. Actually, here's something I have never talked about in an interview. The very first story that I ever actually sold for publication, and I think I got paid like a penny a word and supposed to get a copy of the magazine. It was a Godzilla story that I sold to G-Fan. You guys remember G-Fan magazine?
I have a G-Fan. We have a G-Fan poster down in my husband's massive Godzilla collection.
This was way back in the day when they were first starting out. I sold a story to G-Fan. It was supposed to be accepted. And for whatever, or it was accepted, it was supposed to be published. For whatever reason, it never got published. And years later, I'm like, wonder whatever happened to that Godzilla story. I should pull that out and file the serial numbers off, make it a different monster. And it's one of the few things I've ever written that I don't have a copy of.
Damn it!
You know,
that makes me sad.
That makes me. I was gonna say, because Dustin and I would read that, and then my husband would read it, and then my kids would read it. Matt Whiston would read. There's so many of us who are Godzilla.
Like the ending of a lot of your stories that just ripped my heart out.
Yeah, I did get to do basically my version of Hedorah the Smog Monster.
Ooh,
it's a short story that appears in my collection, Stories for the Next Pandemic, and it's also up on my Patreon, and I'll probably put it in my next mainstream short story collection too. But it's called Out Past the Boardwalk Where the Water Meets the Sky, which is of course a homage to Joe R. Lansdale's great short story titles. But basically it's this guy, he has Alzheimer's and he doesn't want to tell his family, and he's decided that he's going to walk into the ocean and drown himself so his family doesn't have to suffer through this with him.
Oh my God.
And as he's walking out there, everybody comes running out of the ocean, and there's this giant monster on the horizon. And he doesn't know if it really exists or if this is the Alzheimer's setting in.
Ooh.
So he swims out to meet it.
Hello, giant kaiju monster. I am so-and-so. Are you a delusion? Am I having a visual hallucination? Because if I am, this is righteous. my God, I need to read this. Oh,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Actually, and I just remember it's in the new collection Marian and I put out, Things Left Behind. It's in that as well. So yeah, it's out
Oh,
there.
yes.
You'll be able to read
I
it.
have that in my list of needed books. I am too poor for this. That is my problem.
It's my problem too.
I don't make enough money for this passion. Now, this story kind of, oh, there's Clark.
Hi, Clark.
Oh, that's Brian Keene. That's Brian. You know
Clark's not there. There's no Clark.
Well, he's hiding.
Brian Keene, you'll have to come to Land of Little Horses with us
Okay.
sometime
Right.
with me and Clark. So, a fellow, Dustin, I hope you don't mind if I jump in with another question here. So, back when I did an externship at Waynesboro Hospital, I worked with an amazing nurse named Doug Fisher. And 15 years later, find out that Mr. Doug Fisher, now that we work at completely separate facilities, is a huge Brian Keene fanboy.
Okay.
So I went straight to him and I was like, Doug, you're not going to believe what I have the opportunity to do. I'm going to get to talk with Brian Keene. And he was like, shut up. I was like, do you have any questions? So I want to read you word for word what he sent me.
Okay.
I suppose I would ask about the thought process that led to deciding to put pen to paper when those lovely thoughts that eventually became novels came to fruition. For example, some people would have a nightmare about a sentient whale's uterus devouring the Florida Keys and immediately seek out pharmaceutical inventions to prevent said thought from ever returning. Other folks have the same vision and think, sweet crippled Christ, that was delightful. I need to share that with the world. I'm curious as to when it clicked that the stories in your head just might actually be something other folks are interested
Oh, I can tell you exactly when it happened. It happened in the 5th grade.
Oh! Tell
So
us more.
when I was 8 years old, my dad took me to the newsstand with him, and he bought a package of mail pouch chewing tobacco and a hunting magazine. And he bought me 2 comic books, Captain America and the Falcon and The Defenders. And it was 1976. I remember it. You know, I get home, I read those comic books cover to cover. Then I read them again with a dictionary, looking up the words I didn't understand.
Oh.
And then on the third reread, I noticed the little caption box that said written by Jack Kirby, written by Steve Gerber. And it clicked in my head. This is a job you can have as a grown-up. So I started, I was Clark's age or younger, and I was making my own little comic books. So I was always writing, but they were just to entertain me or occasionally my friends. In 5th grade, now I know this may surprise you, but I was a problematic student.
You don't say.
I was a bit of a troublemaker. And I was not known for doing my homework. Always managed to pass, but seldom did homework. I just did really, really well in the tests. So we got this assignment for Halloween. We were supposed to write a scary story. And here's a homework assignment that I was actually excited about. So I sat at the kitchen table for 4 nights, and I wrote this story about this rabid beaver fighting these hunters. And turned it in, and teacher says, well, obviously you copied this from somebody. I'm like, no, I didn't. I worked hard on this, you asshole. He calls my parents, and he's like, you need to come in. Brian obviously copied this story. I just can't figure out from where. And they're like, no.
Oh, God.
They're like, look, we are always on him to do his homework. He never does. We were surprised as you when he sat at the table for 4 nights and wrote this story. We saw him do it. And the teacher never gave me the story back. And I found out when I got to junior high school, I found out that he was making copies and handing it out to the students when he'd have them do this assignment. Like, here's what I'm looking for. So
Wow.
To answer your question, Doug, that was when. It was in 5th grade when I was, smoking stolen Marlboros that I got from the high school behind the middle school building, and reading comic books, and fighting with my teacher over I want my story back, that was when I realized, hey, people will pay attention to me if I write these ideas out.
That is amazing. And Doug shared something a little bit more personal for him, but one of the reasons that he fell in love with you and your writing so much were you were the first adult who made references to the bands that he loved, like Anthrax and like all of that kind of music. He was like, there was no other adult in my life who was like talking about these bands, and here was this man who was like writing about them in his books.
Yeah.
It just created this different level of connection because he was like, this guy gets me.
And you know what's sad? I do that now, and my pre-readers check me. They're like, you're writing about a protagonist that's 30 years old. He doesn't remember buying Master of Puppets when it came out, Brian.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, you're right. His father would remember that. But yeah, I mean, that's what I was into, and I figured, King was doing the same thing with Springsteen, and Larry Underwood from The Stand. He was an amalgam of every yacht rock artist that was out at the time. I wanted to do the same thing, but it's Anthrax and Queensryche and then the stuff I was digging.
Yeah.
If you had ever told me that, years later now, Anthrax's Charlie Benante and I just finished working on something together.
Shut up.
Yeah, be out next year. I think it's supposed to be out. It was supposed to be out this year, but now I'm told next year. Yeah, I can remember. Okay, this is funny. My earliest dust jacket photo, it was one my wife at the time took. We're in Gettysburg, and I had on my Anthrax hoodie, and I wasn't really thinking about what I was wearing. It was a good backdrop, and we needed a dust jacket photo. So Scott Ian from Anthrax, he had a lifetime subscription to Cemetery Dance. Every book they publish, he gets a copy of. And it was back in the days of MySpace. And I get this message from Scott Ian, supposedly. He says, hey, big fan. Just got the new Cemetery Dance book. Thanks for representing us in your dust jacket photo. And I didn't think it was Scott Ian. I thought it was, JF Gonzalez and Wrath and those guys fucking with me. So, because there's no picture or anything. So I type, yeah, fuck you. This is Scotty, and I'm cocksucker. And then he's like, oh, really? This is Scotty, and I got a subscription with Cemetery. So I email Rich at Cemetery Dance, and I'm like, hey, does Scotty Ian from Anthrax have a subscription? Oh, yeah, he likes your books. I'm like, oh.
I just totally told him to go fuck himself.
Wow.
Dear Mr. Ian, I'm so sorry. I'm your biggest
Mr. Ian.
Mr. Ian. That's probably cracked him up.
But yeah, no, that's the thing. I loved all that stuff, and they were all coming up in that era too, and it was like, you want to promote other art that brings you joy and makes you happy.
Yes. Do you like Rollins, Henry Rollins?
Oh yeah, love Henry Rollins.
He's gonna be at the Whitaker Center like in 2 weeks. Dude, are you going?
I can't, unfortunately. My kid has a school event that night.
My husband and I were gonna try to go, but it's like a Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday night or something.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, what an amazing opportunity. So close. Well, we're going to take a very brief break here momentarily, do a little ad shout out to Godless, who's one of our only sponsor. Honestly. They're the only ones. They're the only ones willing to support us at this point. And then we will be back with the rapid fire 4. All
right.
And hang on a second.
Hey kids, looking for a way to affordably access the best and wildest independent extreme horror currently in existence? Godless Horrors is the place to be. Go to www.godless.com to gain access to thousands of extreme horror and splatterpunk books from the genre's best and brightest independent authors. Godless Horrors offers every title in their catalog in a variety of formats to ensure compatibility with your favorite digital reading device. Strapped for cash? No worries. Godless has a fantastic collection of free titles ready for instant download, with other titles in their collection rarely exceeding $3 to $4. Again, go to www.godless.com or download the app and tell them what the fuck you're looking for. Come join the Godless tribe today. Forever delightfully deviant. Forever godless.
Can we carpool to AuthorCon? Gas is
Yeah.
expensive.
Centralia for the day.
Oh my God. I forgot to mention. So my parents, I was born at Bloomsburg Hospital and we moved to Chambersburg in 87. But my dad was the priest at Trinity Episcopal on Washington Street in Shamokin. And at that time, you could still go into Centralia and drive through it. And when we had weekends where we didn't have a lot of money, that's what we would do. My parents would just put us in the car and drive through Centralia. And like we would drive by all of the pipes and the smoke would be billowing out of the ground. And then come to find out, like it was only like 5 years later, some kid fell through the road.
Yep.
I was like, you were driving your 2 children in a Subaru station wagon through the town with the giant mine fire burning under it. We could have fallen in at any time. But for us, it was just a Sunday drive.
Yeah, Mary and I we've gone up there every fall for 10 years, 11 years now, I guess. And we still every year we go up. It's not the same now as it was. Of course, Graffiti Highway is gone and the fires have moved far, far back in the woods. I mean, I can find them. I know my way around up there pretty well. But it's a very different experience now. But I've been lucky enough to take photos of some of the same locations over the last decade. And it's amazing when you line them up in order, just how much things have changed.
It's one of my clearest memories, even from being 4 or 5 years old, is driving through Centralia and the pipes, the vent pipes and the smoke and the lack of people and the cracks in the road. I so clearly remember it because it was just such an odd experience. I would love to see some of those pictures sometimes because it is so vivid in my memory. And you're exactly right. What it is now is nothing compared to what I remember from almost 40 years ago. So, horrible environmental disasters. Such sweet nostalgia. You want to do the rapid fire 4?
Let's do it. Bring it on.
All right, Dusty Buns. This is going to be 4 questions, 4 answers, 0 time to think ahead. We need an answer immediately. So much for the smart people questions. Here comes the dumb buddy. Let's do this. Dustin.
Wait. Who's going first?
Dustin's
Well,
going to
she
hit you
said
first.
dumb,
Dustin's
so
going to
we're
hit
gonna
you
go with me.
first.
Dumb goes with me first. Okay. If someone were to write a memoir about you, what would it be called?
World Domination 101, or How I Made Very Little Money Writing Horror Fiction.
Or how I made very little money writing over 100 books. Why?
Is that the question or is that
That's
the
the question.
Why not?
That's the question.
Why not?
Why would you call it World Domination 101? How to make very little money writing books.
I actually, that used to be a long time joke. I was going to do a memoir called World Domination 101, How I Made Thousands of Fans Very Little Money and Pissed a Lot of People Off writing horror fiction. Instead, the memoir ended up being called End of the Road, and it's probably a better title anyway. But
I don't know. I like World Domination 101. It has a vibe to it that really speaks to my soul. You might want to reconsider like a republished thing of that. My brain was just like, let's be even dumber in that 1 second. Okay. You ready? If
I'm
I
ready.
sat you down and I put an explosive collar on your neck, battle royale style, and I told you you had 30 minutes to write a book for my kids, or the collar would explode and your head would blow up, what would that children's book be called and what would it be about?
I would have to take 5 minutes to think about the title, but would it be about the stuffed animals behind you and how?
Squishmallow Mountain?
Yeah. And how the kid wakes up and you're gone and he doesn't know where you are, but the stuffed animals are there to keep him safe and protect him.
That almost sounds like real life. What would it be called?
Where did mommy go?
That's not traumatic at all.
No, not at all.
Well, and it turns out the stuffed animals were behind your disappearance all along. So
I got eaten by the big one. Ah! It was this one. It was this one. She ate me. Ooh, I'm a mess. Dustin.
Ah,
hit him with
okay,
the
this
next
is kind of this is juicy. Which of your characters is your least favorite and why?
least favorite.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go with Nodens, the omnipresent darkness from Darkness on the Edge of Town, Ghost Walk, and the Labyrinth series, because it's very difficult to write about an omnipresent darkness that doesn't speak or express or emote, it only devours things.
Wow,
Yeah,
that would
that
be
was
hard.
a really
think
great
about that.
idea on your part. Way to make life easy on yourself. Okay. All right. Here's a big one. Who would you rather choose? Who would you choose to back you up in a vicious street fight? The 42-year-old pregnant lady or the guy in the wheelchair?
I
Can
come
I
with
choose-
metal parts.
I can only choose one.
Yes.
All right, then I'm going with the guy in the wheelchair, and here's my thought process why. I'm going to shove him out of the chair at the attackers, slow them down long enough for me to bust some of those spokes out of the wheelchair to use as weapons, and then we'll fuck some shit up.
Okay.
I like your least.
I
Yeah.
appreciate you taking one for me there, Dusty Buns. But
All right.
I like your
Save the life of
management
Brian
of the
Keene. I'm
environment.
okay.
It's like, I will sacrifice myself for Brian Keene.
Yes, I'm good.
It's not the first time this year I've heard that.
That's exactly how I felt after I saw you in your gold bra at AuthorCon.
Yeah.
I
bra?
will lay down my life for this man. And the leggings. It was gorgeous. Now, that was a special. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I blame David Lee Roth. I grew up wanting to be David Lee Roth. When I was 10 years old, David Lee Roth, and to a lesser extent, Han Solo and Burt Reynolds the Bandit were the coolest motherfuckers on the planet. And if you look at my career and my public persona, I think that shows. You mentioned the gold bra. I did it because it was a great thing to do for charity, but also because I knew it would get a laugh and it would get some attention.
Oh, yeah. He was like, I just wanted to wear the bra. I mean, charity is the secondary gain. It is a fucking awesome bra.
It was.
Now, that was a special fourth question because my Dusty Buns is here. But the traditional fourth question for season 2 is, if you suddenly came across an angry Michael Myers in the wilderness, which trauma response would you default to? Fight, flight, or freeze?
Fight.
Finally, RJ Benetti was like, I'm gonna run.
That ain't gonna work out for you.
The man walks like 3 steps a minute. He was like,
Right.
I can just saunter that way. Chandler Morrison
That's not gonna
said
work.
he's gonna freeze because he looks stupid when he runs.
Okay.
And so he would rather just die than have someone even like Michael Myers actually see him attempt to run. So I appreciate the fight. Tell me more about the fight.
Look, first of all, RJ Benetti, what a delightful writer he is.
He's one of
Met
my
him
best
for the first time
friends.
this year. That kid blew me away. I heard him do a reading at AuthorCon. He blew me away. Chandler, I love you, kiddo, but you know the only reason you're freezing is because you probably have Gucci's or some other bullshit on your feet.
Oh, that was it. He said he's also wearing cowboy boots, and he can't possibly run in cowboy.
Does Gucci make cowboy boots?
Yes.
All right.
Probably.
Well,
And he's wearing sunglasses, so he can't see where he's going.
fight. I'm, I'll be 55 this month. If I run, I ain't gonna run that far. If I freeze, chances are within 30 seconds of freezing, I'm gonna have to pee. So I'm gonna fight. When you get to be my age, you've done it all, you've seen it all. It's hard to challenge yourself. I would like to think that Michael Myers would probably wipe the floor with my ass, but I would like to think that I'd give him a run for his money before
he'd remember you.
Yeah.
I'd
say, I know you're going to kill me, but you're going to lose an arm doing it, pal. As far as we know, you can't regenerate. You're not Jason, motherfucker.
I don't know. He went to space, right? Jason. He went to space.
Oh yeah.
He fought. Didn't he fight the Predator? No, that was Alien.
Probably in the comic book.
Oh yeah, he did in the comic book. Yeah.
Now, with Jason, my response would be very different. I would do the one thing no one has ever tried in any of the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Pull the beer out. Say, you want a beer?
He's like 8.
I know.
Brian.
What if when I was 8 and the high school kids said, hey, little Brian, you want a beer? And they'd hand me an old Milwaukee Pounder. Hell yeah, 8-year-old Brian wanted a beer. I'm gonna try to be his buddy.
Did you have a chance to read Bonetti's Just Another Bloodbath at Lake Wobegon?
Not yet. I bought everything he wrote.
Oh yeah.
I have them all in my TBR pile. But yeah, I'm looking forward to all his stuff.
We call him Spaghetti, and actually he was our season 2 opener. His episode just dropped last night, and we actually talk a lot about you.
Oh, really?
You might want to listen to that one if you want to feed your ego even more, because we're like, Brian Keene. It's like, oh my god, Brian Keene, let me read past 3 minutes.
He reminds me very much. I don't know if y'all are Ryan Harding fans.
Yes, he's coming on here in a couple weeks too.
Ryan is a very old, very dear friend, and we started at the same time. And RJ Bonetti really reminds me of Ryan back in the day. That same energy, that same delivery, that same writing style. Yeah, what a treat he is. I like him a lot. I expect good things from him.
Oh, he is going to be so excited to hear that. He's like my adopted baby brother. He's just going to be thrilled. You're a nice man, Brian Keene.
Well, that's not what the internet will tell you.
Well, you've been nice to me, and that's all that matters.
Okay.
Me and Dustin are the only ones that matter. So.
Except, for when I push Dustin out in front of the street guy.
Just film it. This is a viral time. It needs to be filmed. That's
it. He said it was okay.
All right.
And that'll help us be TikTok famous. So
my last word will be me yelling consent as I go flying out.
Oh my God, Brian Keene. If the people would like to contact you, follow you more closely, learn more about what you've got out there, what's available, what's coming up, where are the places you would like them to find you online to do that?
Well, when I was starting out, we didn't have all this social media. We just had websites. So yeah, if you get off Facebook or TikTok, there's a whole other internet out there. And one of the places you can go is called briankeene.com. So everything's there. I'm on social media. The thing I'm most active on is Twitter. I check in with Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all that about once a week. I'm not on TikTok because my 14-year-old made me promise he could have a social media space that his dad hadn't infected. So I'm not on there. But,
tell him to follow us.
Okay. But yeah, if you want to interact with me, definitely Twitter. If you want to learn more about me or my books, briankeene.com.
Awesome. What's your Twitter handle again?
Brian Keene.
Brian Keene. No dashes, no
Nope.
nothing. Just bump him up. Perfect.
Nope.
And for more information on Mr. Brian Keene, as well as our dear Dustin at Captain Crippy on TikTok, he is a member of the Mothers of Mayhem official Facebook group. So come join us there. You can also find there links to the Mom merch store, our ultimate fan community reading soundtrack playlists on YouTube
Merch.
and Spotify. I tried to make one for you, Brian Keene. You've written way too many books
I'm sorry.
with way too many musical references for me to pick out. We did one for Chandler because he only has like 6 books. I was like, well, that's not so bad, but you were impossible. I tried as a gift to you and I failed. Stop being so prolific. We also offer exclusive information, content, giveaway opportunities, and so much more. As always, you can send your questions, comments, pictures of dildos for Christina, and memes of my mortal enemy, Zach Baggins, to our email address. Yeah, I fucking hate that guy. I hope you're not friends with Zach Baggins.
Anthropomorphic shark is one of my favorite things you ever said.
Yes, he is an anthropomorphic shark, Brian.
I'm not sure I know Zach Baggins.
Oh, good. He's the host of Ghost Adventures, and he's awful. I hate him.
I've never I don't even know. I'm assuming Ghost Adventures is one of those bullshit quote unquote reality shows.
Yes,
Then,
on
yeah,
TLC.
Then yeah, I guarantee you I'm not aware of Zach Baggins.
Oh, good, because I hate him.
Well, Zach,
one day.
Does he hate listening to the show? Because if so, then Zach Frodo called and he'd like his fucking surname back.
And he was a better man than you'll ever be.
And he was only a halfling, Zach.
And he was only 2.5 feet tall.
Did we lose her?
Nope. Are we back?
Was that it, Dustin? We lost her.
We lost her.
All
That's
right.
what I'm gonna do.
I'll fill in for her one more time. Thank you to our sponsor, Godless. Check them out at, I don't know, what is it? Godless.com.
Yep. We'll say go.
She's
Godless
nodding
on the
yes.
internet.
Okay.
Just type in Godless Publishing. There you go. You're a natural at this, sir.
I may have hosted a podcast for a little while.
Well, you popped my podcast cherry, and I thank you very, very much.
Well, I thank you. And you guys keep up the good work, and I really appreciate it. And have me back again sometime.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right.
Honor.
See y'all later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Life is a joke, and death is the punchline. Oh, la, 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 la.